So Aubrey Bettencourt from the Almond Alliance of California. Big drive, huh?
Oh, it's just a standard Wednesday driving up and down from Modesto to wherever else. But actually, I was laughing recently. So I recently got a new vehicle. Needed to because I literally drove the last one to death.
Yeah.
And since I've purchased my vehicle and started this job, I've added almost 14,000 miles to the car. So in 6 months.
I did a lot of ag work and stuff, and I was a road warrior.
Yeah.
And in the Bay Area and in Fresno, and all the way up. I went to Porterville, Bakersfield. I've done all agriculture. Yeah. I've done the ports. I've done the major DCs. So I'm pretty familiar with driving, Yeah. And it's like I put on 30 a year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No and it
problem.
Goes fast.
It goes fast.
Yeah, I'm like changing oil like every 6 weeks.
I know. I just got my oil changed, and I was like, I have to go again. This is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's but I love it because that's how you see. It's how you see the countryside. It's how you see. I'm very proud and have had the privilege to see agriculture in every county.
Yeah.
Through my career, and you get to see the communities a different way and really understand what life is like on the ground when you see it from the road like that.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I've gone from hill to hill. Mm-hmm. It's from, the whole valley up and down.
Yeah.
And everybody, cotton, almonds, and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell me what you're doing, where you're at.
Sure. So, Aubrey Bettencourt. I'm the president and CEO of the Almond Alliance, which is the trade association for the almond industry of California and really the United States. The way I look at it is if you're, we grow 80% of the world's almonds here in California.
Right.
We provide 90% of the nation's almonds out of California.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, if you're making trail mix in Tennessee, you're my customer and you're part of my community.
Absolutely.
Who I advocate with and for. So we represent the industry and the community at large. About 7,600 farms here in California.
Wow.
70% of them are less than 100 acres. 90% of them are family-owned and operated. We also represent about the 110 haulers, shellers, processors, and a number of handlers as well. So we cover everything from the international issues all the way down to on-farm, what's happening and at the local and county level. And our job is to be that voice and translator of what is going on in industry and in community, what we need or don't need. And how to translate that into policy and public relations and regulation, and how we be that voice and influence in those sectors at the state, federal levels to be a good advocate and voice and expert for the almond community.
Yeah, I see you've been doing it since 1980. I guess it started.
Yeah, the organization,
Yeah, and it's your state fund?
Pardon?
You're state funded?
No. So this is an all member-based organization and trade association.
Wow.
So to take those political positions, you can't be state funded like that.
Exactly.
You can't. So very different from like the Federal Marketing Order, which is the like the Almond Board of California. That's the Federal Marketing Order.
Right.
They are a created subset of the USDA marketing services and division. Their job is research and development and to promote the sale of American grown almonds all over the world.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're 100% representing the almond.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So what's your background? How did you get there?
So I'm a farmer, actually. Farmer's daughter, farmer out of Kings County. We started, my great-grandfather started in dairy, and my dad and I were in row crops and then transitioned to permanent crops as well. So we do walnuts and almonds. We did cotton. Alfalfa. I baled hay all through high school.
Cool.
My first non-farm job was a field scout for Helena, walking fields. So I learned plant growth development and entomology, and then I went and studied history and thought I wanted to be Jack Ryan. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go save the world.
Where'd you go? What school did you go to?
I actually went to Westmont College in Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. Nice.
Yeah. And then found my way back because I became very interested in the history of water and endangered species law. and the nexus of resource management with agriculture.
Oh.
And so through the course of my career, I ended up had my own consulting business, ended up working as the executive director for the California Water Alliance, which was a advocacy nonprofit, mostly public education. We did a lot of work on bridging the gap between urban and ag, and public education on just general water use and the relationship we as Californians have to water. Did a lot of work through that in the rural infrastructure space as well. And then from there, was consulting all over the country with departments of agriculture. And I joke around, I made a career going around telling people how not to be California in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But built a great network in that, again, kind of having my foot in both worlds of the water side, the resource management and water side, and the agricultural side and how the two interact. And so I served for just under 2 years as state executive director for the USDA Farm Service Agency here in California. So I handled all the disaster programs and farm loan programs. And then from there, I went on to serve just about 2 years with the Department of Interior as their Deputy Assistant Secretary for Water and Science. Jeez. So I worked with the Bureau of Reclamation and U.S. Geological Survey. Right. And one of my favorite projects there was I did a lot of work with the Council for Environmental Quality through the White House on creating a network and an alignment of the water divisions of the United States government. So the U.S. is the only country without a Department of Water.
Is that right?
Yeah, we have 6 different departments that have authority in the water space. So instead of creating a new department, I worked with an amazing team to bring them into alignment and kind of create what would be the American water policy. And it was focused on everything from on-farm to research and development data. And so I worked with U.S. Geological, so I worked with the Department of Interior, Department of Commerce, Department of Energy, USDA, Army Corps of Engineers, and who am I missing? EPA.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
I'm glad I asked you.
So then I found myself back in California and was doing sustainability work in the dairy and cattle sector, and Almond Alliance called, and they were a trade association that I had an immense amount of respect for when I was at USDA and had a great working relationship with them during some trade issues and disaster issues. And so it was a great time to get to know them and them get to know me, and I think it was a great fit. And so I'm glad to be home and in service in the ag sector again.
Your skills in education is unmatched.
It's different.
You have a very broad sense of everything.
Yeah, I like to see the bigger picture, and my real skill set is understanding very difficult things and trying to translate them so that people can understand, and more importantly, so they can take action.
Right. Cool. I mean, yeah. So you were a working girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in an education at that. Well, you got your,
I got my master's in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You learned. You got dirty, and then you went and used the pen. So and then used that to coordinate everything.
Yeah, and I somewhere in there I did farm full time for a little bit, just helping family, and so I do have some interesting on-farm experience as well.
That's the work ethic that we all need. That's great. So tell me a little bit about your mission statement.
Yeah, so we, like I said, kind of what we are, right? We're the voice and influence and advocacy space for the almond industry and community in the political realm and in the regulatory realm. And our job is to advocate for the needs of industry and community in order to keep us thriving, competitive, and sustainable. Now, that word sustainable gets thrown around a lot, and I know in the ag sector, some folks cringe when they hear it, some people roll their eyes when they hear it. Having actually a background in it, I define sustainability for ag as economic viability to creating an environmental outcome. So it has to be, whatever is sustainable has to keep us economically viable and successful as well. So that means taking care of the resources that take care of us, but also making sure that our farmers and all of our related industry is economically viable in order to achieve those outcomes.
Wow. It's quite a thing. So money-wise, people don't realize this. This is pretty much why I'm doing my show and everything, is I'm putting together a consortium of, experts like yourself to show people that food it's not growing at Costco.
Yeah.
And everyone I talk to laughs about that, just like that. It's like everybody walks in the store and they go, oh, this stuff is just like the parking lot, you know, it magically got here. And through a lot of hard work and a lot of organization, you know. But I mean, these numbers are incredible. You know, you picked almonds. It's an $11 billion market. 7.6 billion is attributed to almond farming, and 3.4 is contributed to almond processing and manufacturing sectors. Yeah, I dealt with a company, and they did chocolate-covered almonds, and it was a huge, up in the Bay Area, it was a huge, you know, and they were like, we have a hard time getting almonds for this. And I'm like, wow, specialty items, you know. But
yeah, we're the number 2 commodity for the state of California.
Yeah.
And we're the largest ag export for the state of California.
Right.
We're also the largest specialty crop export in the United States.
Yeah.
So what I kind of find so beautiful and amazing about this community is, like I said earlier, it's 7,600 farms, and we have a global footprint of 80% of the world's supply.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's mind blowing when you think about this niche thing. And so I love talking. I was talking to some folks in Sacramento this morning, and I said, "Listen, you know the stats as well as I do," and I rattled off the same stats you did. And they go, "Yeah." I said, "Quit calling me a specialty crop. We're a national player. We're an international player.
Absolutely.
We need to act like it. This is." You know, everybody always looks at corn, wheat, and soy, and I've got a lot of good relationships with my corn, wheat, and soy guy. Yeah. And I'm pretty bold about throwing down and saying, I'm coming for you guys. Like, we deserve a seat at that table too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you know, almonds are used for a lot now. And it's, over the years, it's broadened and got this big, but it's a huge export. And it's like one of the only items we export anymore, especially out of California. Besides Silicon Valley, and they export air. As far as I'm, you know, that's what I call it. You know, it's something, but it's air. It's not a viable substance that you can eat. So, and I guess everything goes out of Oakland.
So, yeah, about 85% of our exports go out of Oakland.
Yeah.
Not lately,
right?
Because of supply chain disruption issues. So, I mean, at this point, we're moving product anywhere we can get it out. I've got almonds going out of Houston. I've got almonds going out of LA Long Beach. I've got almonds going out. We're trying to pilot almonds out of Stockton. We're looking anywhere we can get almonds out the door right now because of supply chain
So,
issues.
are we transporting train or truck?
Train, trucks, yeah, both.
Any way we can get it.
Any which way we can. It's like a Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was watching a deal on TV, and this guy was going. He had a whole warehouse. I forget where he's from, and he was like, I can't get my stuff out.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's not perishable. You know?
Right. I mean, the beauty of the almond, right, is it's this amazing storable plant-based protein.
Yeah.
So if held in the right conditions, it'll keep for a number of years. But we just have had 3 of our biggest crop years, and it starts to back up. Money in.
Yeah.
And this is the sad part is that's product that's sold.
Absolutely.
But until it's delivered, it's not paid for.
Right.
So we end up with a cash flow crunch on the ground that is affecting real lives on farm.
Yeah, as far as the supply chain, you know, I've dealt with the ports, and I've dealt with trucking, and I've dealt with the DCs, specialty. So I've dealt with the complete line and the stores.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I've tried to explain this to people. Everybody's pointing fingers at each other, right? And it's like, no, it's the whole thing. Okay, well, the ships out there are and it's like, wait a minute, do you know there's a limited square footage in the port? Okay, and you know about this. I'm just reiterating.
No. This is good.
Yeah, I'm reiterating it. So, okay, so you got a limited amount of space. God ain't making any more land out there. Okay, you also have a limited amount of cranes, and we worked on those cranes, so I know all about how many cranes they have, how many mobile ones they have, how many, you know. So there's only so much that you can work with there, and the ships. There's different size ships too, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's a portion of the port out there where they actually work on ships. So I learned all about that, and a lot of ships are built very big to go for Oakland and for our San Francisco deal here in LA. Well, those big ships can't go around Florida.
No.
Agreed?
And they can't get into Stockton either.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So we got an issue there, okay? So, but everything is so fine-tuned. At the DCs, let's say you have 150 slots for for a truck to get into. That's it. You aren't making any more slots. Okay, racking inside the place. You aren't making any more racking. People, you can only have so many people. You only have so many forklifts. You only have, so it's like, what do we do?
Well, and you've got also a series of like really antiquated laws that are still in place, and rules
policies.
that are still in place, and policies.
Bad policies.
Yeah, when I've digging under, looking under the hood at the Federal Maritime Commission, and you're just like, oh my gosh, we're dealing with laws from the 1800s. Still,
maritime law is, people don't understand. Maritime law is, it's a law by itself.
It's sacrosanct. And when we're dealing with the circumstance we are now, where we have no American-owned carriers,
right,
we have very little legal leverage with contracts and things like that. So we're very much at the mercy of the international system at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. But everybody it's like everything's fine-tuned because it's all about cash, right? Yeah. Okay, so you can't hold on to food that long, and we're just talking about food. We're not talking about lawn chairs or, microbits or anything else that's in the chain. But food only stays, so, as you know. So it's very fine-tuned. A store, they're all numbered, and they're packed. It's in one side, out the other.
Yeah, the logistics of it is so precise. I think what's so interesting right now is we're series of what would appear to be disparate disruptions are all convening at the same time.
Absolutely.
And it's bringing to a head a very amazing global crisis.
Yes.
Now with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, that's time. We're all hearing about the fertilizer shortage,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
the wheat issues that are taking place all over the world.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because Ukraine was the breadbasket of the world.
Yeah.
California is too, by the way.
Yeah.
But, Ukraine's got it. Cool. But that's also impacting because 40% of the world's potash comes from Belarus. Well, Belarus is sided with Russia, which means there's now, there's all the sanctions on that, which means we aren't getting product out of there.
Absolutely.
So you have all of these things combining at once with the combination of things like weather and impacts of that and failure to plan in a lot of ways. And, we keep hearing about global food shortage.
Yeah. What's your opinion on that?
I think a lot of us have known this was coming for a long time. A long time. And supply chain disruption has exacerbated it. I could have sworn, just me talking personally, could have sworn COVID was going to wake people up. Because never in America should we have thought that empty shelves was normal.
It's not.
It's not normal.
No.
And we have progressed into a non-rural subsistence living society for a reason.
Right.
For all of the reasons you described of the precision of our supply chain and the precision of our agriculture, for 1.5% of the population to feed the other 98.5% of the population at an affordable level.
Absolutely.
So you can go do the 29 million other things you want to go do and have other jobs and have other lives, instead of worrying about how you're going to feed yourself every day.
Yeah.
So, this is such an interesting time. We already have nations declaring states of emergency, and it's interesting. It's a combination of the logistics. It's a combination of, I think, priority. Maslow's hierarchy of needs still reigns supreme. And I just had this conversation with some folks in Los Angeles, and they said, why are my grocery bills so high for my people? I said, I agree with you, and we need to fix that, and I want to be a part of the solution for that. Well, okay, what do we do about inflation on food? And I said, you prioritize the inputs to the farmer who produces the food, bring the cost of the production down, and that will contribute to bringing the cost of the input down for your people. Domestic production becoming back to an affordable and prioritized level.
Yeah.
So that includes things like water.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So that's, it's all of those inputs, right? And so it's I think helping to, and we need to do a better job, I think, in our agricultural community of making that connection that, we as an industry, we thought because people ate, they loved us. And we forgot to tell them about how we're a part of their lives. I think we forgot to tell ourselves how much they're a part of ours. And if there's one thing that just on a global macro scale, I would love to see us as a community do and take advantage of this opportunity, is to bring us closer together with our consumer. And that direct connection between us, and how they are a priority to us, and so we need to be a priority to them, and the inputs that we need to produce for them need to be a priority.
Yeah, I lived in the Bay Area, and the San Joaquin Valley really didn't matter to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, you don't realize what they do, you know, and it's all the city mentality. Same with Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. They're oblivious, and that's part of what I want to do is educate people, but they're oblivious to what it takes to bring the food into their cities to feed them, because orange trees aren't around there. You don't see an orange tree in San Francisco anywhere, you know?
Yeah. So it's, you can, I'm all for, you know, anybody trying to grow food anywhere, but you can't feed the world the way that we do without the farmer and without the communities that they support and the other industries that bring it to you.
Now tell me about the husks.
Oh, yeah, hulls and shells?
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell me about
So
that.
everything about the almond tree is used and useful, which is very cool. There's nothing wasted in the almond. So the nut, the kernel that we all know and love, is the nut. And then you have the shell, which can be used in plastics. It can be used in a number of other compounds, but a lot of it's been used as a plastics reinforcement through various processes. And then
a binder. Yeah.
And then the hull itself is actually one of the best co-products really, which is the hulls are incredibly nutrient rich, and they make excellent food and feed mixtures for livestock.
Yeah.
So whether we're doing that for our cattle and our dairy, which we've been doing for quite a while in the United States, and we're now doing in other parts of the world. The Almond Alliance has been a lead on that. But also we're exploring options for poultry and for pork. And again, kind of going back to those input costs, as alfalfa, because of drought, it becomes harder to get a hold of. That's going to drive up the need for food blends and alternative feed. And so the almond hulls can kind of fit right in there to help provide that, because it is another co-product for every nut.
Now, are they looking into using that as a fuel?
Yeah, so we do have the opportunity to do biomass and green energy that way through pyrolysis and biochar, a number of other options. So whether we're looking at using those other co-products as fuel, or even the trees themselves, right? So you can do you can mulch them and turn them into green waste, which then can be processed as well. Or we have piloted a lot of work in whole orchard recycling. So when an orchard gets pulled, being able to mulch that and mix that back into the soils. We've got a lot of great data out there that talks about what that does for soil health and retention of moisture, in addition to carbon sequestration. That's about 2.6 tons of carbon per acre when we recycle an orchard like that. Yeah,
that's
sequestered.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And then, we're doing a lot of work and research with our partners at the Almond Board about, okay, let's really look at the life cycle of the almond orchard and how much carbon we are sequestering. And what is our true carbon, sequestration and footprint? Net versus gross, for the life cycle of the orchard, and then start, once we kind of have a better idea of that, taking into the account of all parts of what that orchard does, looking at what the orchard lifespan does for us. So that's a conversation we're having both at the research level, but even at the policy level, saying, look, we have 1.3 million acres of trees that are wonderful little carbon scrubbers. How do we calculate that into our overall green goals?
Yeah, how does that pull down?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then what are the inputs in order to do that? So what is the value, right? You've got to do the benefits and analysis.
So you're into all that?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. That's fantastic.
We are, I think, look, I'm a born and raised Californian.
Yeah.
And I'm
Me too.
a proud diva of California ag.
Yeah.
I used to love when I was at USDA saying, we're the number one ag economy in the United States at $50+ billion a year.
Yeah.
Farm gate, unprocessed goods. Iowa's number 2 at 25. Isn't that cute?
No
right?
kidding.
So,
Yeah.
I love being the diva on that.
Yeah.
So what is also, I think, just as important to realize is, California also loves to put incredible goals out for itself and say, we're going to be, 90% electric vehicles by 2030. We're going to, they throw a lot of things out there for us. Okay, that's fine. Sometimes I sit there and go, okay, how we get there?
Yeah.
Right? We got to talk about what the practicality is.
See, that's the deal.
That is the deal.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing that I want to emphasize, and that the almond community, who is incredibly sophisticated, which is how it has been that amazing global footprint is taking our incredible sophistication and progression in the way that we've applied to our business and apply that to these other goals. Because here's the deal. In looking at the future we want to have to meet my definition of sustainability, the farmer has to be a part of the solution, not the problem. And we are the solution and not the problem. Why? Because in order for us to achieve these goals that we've set out for ourselves in carbon sequestration, groundwater sustainability, habitat propagation, you need land managers. You need people who know how to use the resource.
Yeah, yeah.
The only people who know how to do that are farmers.
Oh, yeah. This is and people think that farming is E-I-E-I-O. You put something in the ground and just, some water and some fertilizer.
And how dare you make money doing that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's some moral imperative on
those
this.
rich farmers.
Those farmers made money feeding
I've heard that
me?
all my
How
life.
dare they?
Yeah. I heard that all my life. It's like, you guys are all rich farmers. And I'm like, do you have a clue of what's going on? And they don't. I mean, it's like, my dad, it was like it'd rain, and he'd go, and he's waiting for it, and it was a big thing.
I had a friend in Boston recently call me, and they just bought a house, and her husband, he called me up because he wants to grow different berries. He's building a garden, so I was talking to him about it. Call Extension Service. I'm not quite sure how you grow berries in Massachusetts, so. So I walked him through Extension Service and who to call and how to do it, and just kind of what I knew, and they were just fascinated by this. And he goes, well, I'm convinced that when I pluck that first berry, when I pick my first harvest, I'll be a true farmer. And I said, that's good. I said, but you'll be a true farmer when you've done everything right and it dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he goes, that's really depressing. I said, welcome to farming. Yeah. I said, you will be a true farmer when you deal with the heartache of you have done everything right to keep something alive, something that depended on you.
Yeah.
And that you showed up for every day and you sacrificed for every day. And it didn't make it. Something out of your control happened. And I said, that's the moment of true farming.
I tell all my guests, I didn't know my dad till I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
Because I never seen him.
Yeah, you never saw him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he was gone when I woke up in the morning to go to school. And I was in bed when he came home.
Yeah.
And he was, he was a real farmer. Yeah. I mean, he was out there, ranch managing and the whole bit, driving the fields all the time. And, our specialty was figs.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, we were
fantastic.
Yeah, we were the biggest fig guys around. In fact, my uncle, he in 1958, he patented Mr. Fig.
Nice.
Yeah, and then he called his wife Mrs. Fig. And we had dehydrators and did, the grape, he'd go, that's raining. And I'm like, yeah, that's bad. Everything's on the ground, the grape, the raisins. And he's going, no, because we've got the dehydrator and we just dehydrate, insurance and everything.
Sure.
So, yeah, we did a lot of that.
Do we still have the fig festival here?
Yeah,
we do?
Yeah, we're out of it through really dumb luck. And that's when my uncle, he's passed now and everybody's done with it. But our family, we had the figs in all the real estate. Here in Fresno. Yeah. Fig garden. I mean, it was all, my grandfather, he didn't know. He just did it.
Yeah.
And he was buying land at $1 an acre. Came from Italy. He's, the whole bit.
We all have those stories, too.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing about, and why Almond Alliance, we're very clear about, we talk about our community, not our industry. Because we have a beautiful history and heritage and a very diverse community involved in our industry. And to also really acknowledge that we as farmers and processors and haulers and shellers, we live in these communities. There's this horrible, disgusting misnomer that we don't live in these rural communities or these quote unquote, these disadvantaged communities. We live there.
Yeah.
We work there. We're on the school board there. We worship there. We go to lunch there. We donate to the local Rotary Club.
Yep.
We sponsor the softball teams in Firebaugh and Mendota, and I grew up near Armona and Lemoore and Hardwick. And
is that right?
Yeah. And so this is we are a community with these amazing histories and heritage.
Absolutely.
And that's just as important. So we actually do, you'll see us weigh in on things that are supporting communities. They may not have a direct connection to ag, but those are our communities, and it's our responsibility to take care of them just like we do when we're at home.
A lot of tough guys. We, when my great-grandfather, when he died, they said, so when did your Grandpa, to my mom, it was her grandpa, when did he break his back?
Oh,
And they went, break his back?
He
And
never
they went, he never broke his back. Yeah, he had a broken
back.
Didn't,
Wow.
just.
Yeah. Different way of thinking.
Yeah, just fought right through it.
Yeah.
I mean, and people don't understand that how hardened. And I say it to everybody, I say, you don't have an idea. I've dealt with farmers on a business level. They're the most stringent, most smartest people. You aren't going to get around them.
And they have to be everything, right? They have
They have
be
to
the
know
economist,
everything.
the botanist, the biologist, the entomologist, the lawyer, the bookkeeper. Politician,
Yeah.
the regulatory specialist, the admin specialist, the compliance specialist.
Yeah. So tell me, now you're a water expert. Tell me about what's going on.
Well,
no, I'm sorry. That's a long.
That's a great
question. The short version.
What is going on?
Yeah, what is going on?
Well,
a lot. No, a lot.
Yeah, it's a
not good. Yeah.
No, well, we're in drought again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to deny we're in a dry cycle, but we also have a drought of management protocols as well.
Yep. Bad policy and
bad
management.
policy and management over a period of time. And I'm getting to the point now where it's like, okay, we don't want to live through Groundhog Day anymore.
All right.
Right. So we have to, stay persistent, but do not persist in failed strategies. And so I think the challenge to us now is to do, what's different? What can we do to make it different? And I think in the ag sector especially, and this is going to be pretty radical, but so often we feel like it's happening to us because we're always the first ones to get cut.
Right.
Now, and we've been cut over and over again for my lifetime, since the 90s, really. And now we're to the point where there's nothing left to take from us except the legal aspect of what's left.
Exactly.
Right? The water rights structure. So we're having a new conversation outside of the traditional. So the traditional is the basic golden rules of water, right? Which is, 2/3 of the rain and snow is in the northern third, 2/3 of the population economy in southern 2/3. The vast majority of the way that we got to be the 5th largest global economy in less than 100 years was we harnessed the water from north to south and created 365 days a year of flood protection and water supply. The functionality of that system is what gave us this wonderful place that we are. Now, that system was designed for 2 types of water use. So this is lesson number 2. The 2 types of water use were agricultural and municipal and industrial.
Exactly.
Since about the 70s, but that system hasn't really been updated since the early 70s when the population was about 25 million people.
See, that's exactly right.
Right.
Okay. I went ahead. I did deep dives on all this stuff. And I was looking at population. And when all our dams and everything, because everybody I talk to has a different opinion on how to save or get more water. There's a lot of different opinions, okay? And one of them was, well, let me tell you about population. Okay, population God, when they put the dams in, it's unbelievable. We had like 1/3 the population that we do now, and you know what the population is of California.
We're coming up on
60 million. Yeah, and it was like something like 25 or 30 million.
Yeah, that was about the last time we did any major infrastructure upgrades. It was in the 70s. About you could really say
water storage.
68, but 71, 73, some smaller projects up north. So the population was about 25 mil. And the purpose for the system was to provide water to 2 types of water use, agricultural and municipal and industrial. So what's interesting is through the agricultural delivery, we also actually restored our aquifers to pre-project levels in less than 50 years. Because now, instead of drawing water out of the ground, we were getting surface water delivered 365, on demand, regularly, sinking that water in the ground, reducing the demand on the groundwater, and instantly that aquifer restored.
Right.
Almost instantly, but like in less than 50 years, that aquifer restored.
Agree.
However, from about the 90s on, we had a shift in priority, neither right nor wrong. The environment became a priority, and protection of the environment has become a priority. Starting in the 70s, of course, with the Endangered Species Act and the rise of the National Environmental Protection Act. But in the 1990s is really when it came home for California. And in 1992, it was decided that the water quality of the Delta, which is the heart of that system, where that water is pushed through and then lifted and pumped throughout the rest of the state, that a portion of that water that's captured in the north needed to be dedicated for the health and well-being of the delta, for the species and the water quality of the delta. And so a deal was struck with the water contractors. Now, that's another important part to this, right? Everybody who benefits from the system paid into it. That is what their water right is predicated on, that they paid to be a beneficiary of that project. Their payment went to pay off the construction of that project, and in return, they received water on contract. On the state side, because the state has its portion and then the feds have their portion, on the state side, they pay 100% of their contract regardless of delivery. The feds pay almost 100% of their contract regardless of delivery. So there is a component there, because you're still on the hook to pay off the project regardless of if you get water or not.
Okay.
So in the 1990s, the feds came to the state and to the contractors and said, we need 20% of your contract. We're going to use that to keep the delta healthy and keep the water quality healthy. We're going to flush that out to the ocean and protect species and water quality. And you know that old Reagan saying of, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
And those are the most feared words.
Yeah.
Right? The sister phrase to that is, and I promise I'll never do it again. So that was 90s. They said, we promise we won't take any more. We won't do this again.
Yeah. But
20% over the course from the 1990s to the early 2000s quickly became 60+%, and in some cases 80%. And so what happened was that system that was designed for two types of water use received a third water user. And now that third water user is the largest water user. So of the entire developed... I'll walk you through it.
Yeah.
Of the entire water developed system, so developed water,
right,
so the reservoirs and the canals that capture that rain and snow and harness it and move it, we call that developed water.
Right.
Of that, which by the way is less than 20% of all precipitation in the state, so we really only use a fraction of what's out there.
I know.
Of that, 50% goes to environmental protection programs. 40% goes to agricultural, and 50% goes to municipal and industrial. 10%, excuse me. Yeah, I said that. 50, 40, 10.
50, 40, 10.
That 50% is a new water user, and it does not pay.
Right.
So
where does that come from?
Came out of the rest that 50 came out of the 40 and that came out of the other two parts, right? We added a third straw.
Yeah.
So that's the second rule that's what I call the second golden rule of California water, is the 50-40-10. 50% for environmental protection, 40% for agricultural, 10% for municipal and industrial. Now, what has happened is that largest water user is now dependent on the system, and the system has now been operated with that as the priority. And unfortunately, that system has never been upgraded to handle that as a priority.
Absolutely. Infrastructure.
So exactly. So that goes to the system has been targeted as the problem, when in fact the system is the key to the solution, because that's how we are able to control quantity, quality, timing, and distribution of the water to try to protect that species, or to protect that water quality, or to protect that from flooding. So we have an undersized system with out-of-date laws, not capable of keeping up with the modern population and modern priorities of the 21st century.
Yeah.
The third rule of California water, and I've just added this one, is that a drought is caused by nature or God. That's a drought.
We've had droughts since the 1800s. I looked at the annual. We were having 3 inches of rain.
Sure.
In various times throughout.
Droughts are caused by nature and God.
Yeah.
Water shortages are caused by a lack of leadership and bad management.
Yeah.
That is a decision of man.
Yeah.
Because our system is designed to protect us from flooding and to carry us through 3 years of drought.
Okay.
When the system is whole, it is designed to keep us whole for 3 years.
Okay.
So when you come off of a 2019, which had the highest amount of water we'd seen, it could have filled the system more times over than we knew it to do it. And then 2 years later, we're at Deadpool in 2021.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's because someone decided to let that water go.
Yeah. Oh, I understand.
That wasn't because there was a lack of rain. That system was designed to help you with that part.
Yeah.
But that's really the third part. So those are those 3 kind of underlying foundations. So where does that put us today? Well, the thing about a drought is the only way you can get out of a drought is you hunker down, you conserve, and you survive it. You do what you can to survive. But you, by God, better have a plan for what to do when it rains. And so that's one of the conversations that I'm having with my colleagues in the water space and at the state and federal levels is, all right, this is bad. This is real bad. I'm not going to deny it's bad.
Yeah.
The reservoirs are terrifying, and it's going to have a ripple effect through public health. We will have towns in Southern California, urban areas, will run out of water this year.
When that happens,
something else, right?
Yeah.
So this is the mega wake-up call.
Whoa.
This is the mega wake-up
I didn't
call.
realize that.
Oh, yeah. There are certain portions of the Metropolitan Water Authority, which is the wholesaler for all of Southern California, that is solely dependent on State Water Project water. And the State Water Project has no water. Has 0%.
Yeah.
So when we're in this level of...
Yeah.
Right? You have to have a plan for what to do when it rains. And woe unto them who don't. And so a lot of the conversations we're having right now is, all right, what are the operational flexibilities we need in place to capitalize on the precipitation when it comes?
All right.
Are there barriers to the ability to operate the system with flexibility to take advantage of instances when we have rain and snow?
Right.
A lot of the management protocols for the reservoirs and the operation of our system is based on a calendar. It's not based on real atmospheric or environmental conditions in real-time operation.
Yeah.
It's we have to let the water go because on this date we let water go. It's not based on, it's a little bit dry and we need to take advantage of what we got. Nope, we got to let it go because we let water go on this date.
Yeah.
So there are some really antiquated rules that if we could get modernized, that would actually contribute greatly to the ability to use the existing system flexibly. Now, do I still want to advocate for increased infrastructure development? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We need that.
Absolutely, we need it. But we also need the rules that operate it modernized, and we need those barriers to operators to behave flexibly removed.
Yeah.
So that's one of the priorities I'm looking at just in the short term. You also have kind of the added politics of what's going on as well. You want me to get all the way in the weeds here?
Go.
So I'll do it. Okay. So you have what also starts because of that increase of prioritization for environmental protection. One of the things that we hear talked about in California water a lot are the biological opinions.
Yeah.
Biological opinions are analysis done by the fish and wildlife protection agencies at the federal government, analyzing the impact of an operation on a species that is protected. The analysis or the biological opinions done on the water projects, the state and federal water projects, Central Valley Project on the federal side, State Water Project on the Fed side, specifically the pumps in the delta that move water from north to south, are always being analyzed for a number of different species, most notably the delta smelt, right?
Yeah.
And various species of salmon throughout the year.
Yeah.
Now, they also look at green sturgeon and killer whale and a number of other things, which is a whole nother conversation on ESA we can have another day. But the important thing to know is those environmental analysis, those biological opinions, impact the operations manuals for the system. And it is up to the operating entities. The federal operating entity is the Bureau of Reclamation. The Department of Water Resources is the state operating entity, to have their operations plans approved through that lens of biological opinion analysis of the impact on the species. There were biops done in 2008 and 2009, and those were the big ones that got taken to court immediately because they basically said under the delta smelt and the salmon opinion, it essentially said you will only move water from north to south for 1 month out of the year at 1/6 capacity.
Yeah.
Which is not possible.
Yeah.
To survive. It's just not possible. So those were taken to court, and the court said, okay, we remand the biops, which means we send them back to the agencies to go have them analyzed again, and and Bureau of Reclamation, you got to come up with a new operation plan. That was taking 10 years. And in the meantime, they were recording data, they're watching what the operations, and they were under what's called agency discretion, where the Fish and Wildlife Agency and NOAA Fisheries could basically call up and say, hey, we see, turbidity, or we see flow, or we see saltwater. You need to ratchet down pumping.
Yeah, shut them down.
Shut them down.
Yeah.
And so kind of on a discretionary basis. There was no certainty. So one of the things we hear in the agricultural sector is we need certainty back. The system had provided certainty for our water managers at the urban and agricultural levels.
We have to have planning.
Yeah, and we can't if any other day.
Yeah, the biggest thing is
call.
business planning.
Yes. And that has effects all the way through capital and everything else. I mean, you can't you can't get a loan from certain lenders right now in the ag sector unless you prove 2 sources of water supply, and that is almost impossible to prove right now. Which means you can't get financing for your business because of this stuff. So this crazy stuff I'm describing has real life applications.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
these buy-ops get pulled back. They get redone in 2019 under the Trump administration. And they get taken to court by the Newsom administration. And they actually stood up in court 3 times. Court said, no, they were done appropriately. The science was analyzed appropriately. The legality of the way they were put together was done appropriately. And what the buy-ops of 2019 said was you needed to do a tremendous amount of investment in habitat and in a number of other mitigation things to help support species outside of just flow. It said you can't just look at flow as the sole impact of the species. So meaning water moving through can't be the only thing hurting the fish. You have to look at habitat, you have to look at predation, you have to look at all these other factors that could be affecting these species. And it also
it's complicated.
It's very complicated. It also armed the Department of Water Resources and Bureau of Reclamation with the ability to operate based on real-time conditions. And they could say, you know what? We got a flood event. We're going to release water out of the dams upstream. We're going to push it down. We're going to pump it south, and that's going to help with water quality, and we're going to store water when we can. We're going to move it and store it where and when we can so that we're ready. And it gave them that flexibility to do that in real time.
Right.
And it had all these great investments in other things, with the agreement being that in 10 years, we'll look at how the investments went, we'll look at how operations went, and if the species are doing great, then we're great. And that's what they're supposed to do. Change of administration. Biden-Harris administration pulls those back and says, we remand them, we want them redone, we don't think they did a thorough enough analysis. The state of California comes in just recently with something that had been offered up through conversation throughout the years, which was called Voluntary Agreements. It was this idea that the state and the feds and the different contractors would come together and agree to a new operations plan for water for the state. And so with the biological opinions being pulled back, the Biden-Harris administration doing new analysis on those, that kind of put the political headwind or political push momentum in the direction of the governor's office. Governor's office brought together the water users again. And so you saw an announcement recently where his team from his administration brought together almost all, but not all, water contractors, both on the state and federal side, they have agreed, this was great. They didn't actually sign on to the voluntary agreements just yet. But what they signed on to was an agreement to the terms on which they would negotiate to agree on. But in there are things like how much more water you'll give up and what will be the priority around supply for and payment for environment and a number of other things. And what will the water future look like? So you have, come back to us as a trade association in the almond world, right? We have farmers throughout 13 counties in California across many water districts, some of whom have signed on to be a part of this and some of whom haven't. Some of whom want to but can't quite yet because they need to negotiate out some terms before they can sit down at that table.
It's complicated.
But for us, our job is to keep our farmers farming.
Yeah, we just want it.
We just want to farm.
Yeah.
So our job is to be in a position of influence, to have good relationships with our water managers, who ultimately will be the ones who negotiate here, to make sure they know what we can survive and what we need and what we can and cannot do. Can we modernize? What we'll need to do that? Under what conditions can we agree to certain things? Because we're the ones who have to ultimately participate in this at the end of the day. And we have skin in the game. That's our property. It has banknotes.
Yeah.
It has taxes. It has employees.
Yeah, we paid for it.
We paid for it.
Yeah.
For every acre of irrigated agriculture in California, that's 11 jobs.
For every acre. Okay.
Of productive irrigated ag land, that's 11 jobs. So these voluntary agreements are very important to us as a trade.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand the political dynamic. And that's really our job as the Almond Alliance and as the Trade Association, is to be, and what I'm excited about, where my expertise I think is really a lot of fun. I'm excited about working in this. It's all of this complicated stuff that just sounds horrible. What I'm excited about is I have a savvy and incredibly smart community who wants to keep doing good business, who wants to support their communities, who wants to be a part of the solution. And we're going to be in the room to make sure that this works out, to be in a position of influence, to carry our voices and needs into that space and to be good advocates for our communities in that space. You add to that, I'll put one layer of complication on top of all of this.
Okay.
We have a new groundwater regulation coming online in California.
Okay.
California was the last bad actor in the western United States. We were the only state without a groundwater regulatory program. And back in the day, years and years ago when this was moving through the state legislature, I remember I was kind of the odd man out when I was with the California Water Alliance, because I was like, actually, this isn't a bad thing. We should have a groundwater plan.
Okay.
So we're kind of the last guy out here with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the one that came through the legislature didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to, right? It is designed, some would say it's designed to fail. It basically says, here's a cup of water. I want you to fill it up, but don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
And so it really brings into a new layer of what we call conjunctive use, which is this idea of how does surface water relate to groundwater and what are the legal property rights that are attached to both.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to challenge as this starts coming into compliance. So what happens is basins were analyzed throughout the state as being critical and other designations, and the basins had to come up with a basin plan. They had to first create their own governance, a local governance structure. Then they had to come up with their own plan. That plan then had to go to the Department of Water Resources for approval. And then it was handed back down to the basin, and the basin has so many years to achieve their goals outlined in their plan. And if they fail to, the state can step in.
Mm-hmm. Is that a good thing?
Probably. Right? Because... Here's why. Here's some of the big challenges here. There's a lot of unknowns here. One is, well, in order to refill an aquifer, you have to get surface water from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Where does that come from?
Where does that come from?
Yeah.
Well, it comes from the systems I just talked about that are going through their own turmoil,
that
right?
50-40-10.
That 50-40-10.
Yeah.
Where does groundwater recharge fit into that? Under state law of California, groundwater recharge is not considered a beneficial use of water.
No.
So we've got kind of out-of-line goals and legal priorities here. So there's a lot of things that got to be brought into alignment through this. That being said, it is a scary time because the groundwater, as that surface water pie, that 50-40-10, as that 50% got bigger and bigger, what happened was everyone started relying on groundwater. Groundwater use and surface water use are inversely related. When surface water is not available, groundwater demand goes up.
Absolutely pumping,
right? Well, what has happened is as that surface water supply has become more irregular, groundwater demand has gone up. And so the aquifers have been under extreme pressure because they are not receiving the surface water supply that they regularly received since 1971.
Yeah, everybody's drinking water.
Right?
Yeah.
To recharge itself.
Yeah.
And so we are in this very uncertain time on a system that was designed to bring us certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're seeing is a lot of people grasping for opportunities to find that certainty again. And so they're engaging in these processes like the voluntary agreements and other things.
Right.
And the question will be, okay, we're going to get the opportunity to manage something. What are we going to have left to manage?
Whoa. It's a lot. What you went through is a lot to chew on.
Yeah, I know. I just blew everybody's mind.
Well, no, not.
It's hard.
Not really. I mean, it has to be done. People like yourself with the education you have and what we just went through, you have to have those people telling the bureaucrats and the autocrats and everybody else, this is how we should do it, and this is what you should do. These people, they throw switches, and it really is. It's a bad thing. It's like, here's the switch, like carb laws or whatever, and it's like, you got to do this, and it's like, dude, do you have any idea how to do it? No. You just have to do it.
Right. And I think that's where it behooves of us in the trades and in the advocacy space to be there before they flip the switch and say, okay, wait. What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
All right. Let me walk you through it.
Right.
I'll help you get there.
Yeah.
But let me show you how to get there in a way that works for everybody.
See, that I remember back, it was like 1990, early 90s, and these guys went to SAC and they were doing the carb laws. And it was for machinery.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
And they go, we're the only ones here. there's nobody here. There's nobody representing the trucks. There's nobody. They just either didn't know it or didn't want to show up, you know. But it's exactly what you said. We have to be there to tell them what to do.
Yeah. And I think that's really the mindset shift that has to take place, right? So often we feel this is all happening to us, and we are the victims of it. And in some cases, we are victims.
Yeah.
But are we going to sit and wallow in the victim mentality?
Yeah.
Or are we going to stand up and start telling them what we're going to do instead of letting them tell us what we're going to react to?
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, is the mindset shift that has to take place. If agriculture, which is it is, as we've described, a massive portion of our economy, even though we will constantly hear, it's only 2% of the GDP. Let me tell you right now, Iowa would love to have 2% of California's GDP.
Oh, yeah.
And the federal government really counts on our ability to export stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So,
perspectives.
Totally put it in perspective. But if we are going to get out of this it's happening to us mentality, I think we really have to claim our space and start being in that space to be able to tell people this is what we're going to do. And that's not combative. It is about knowing who you are and what you need. And that can be respected because that's where the negotiation starts. I heard a really great quote recently that said, when you become totally cynical, you step away from the game, and then you're really only left with 3 options: tyranny, slavery, or negotiation. I choose the third one.
I don't want to see things get worse by those. No.
And the only way you do that is you've got to shake it off and stand in the fray.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear this threatening stuff of we're going to go and open the pumps, and all this, and it's like, how did we get there? This is bad. When you start talking about people taking action like that, that's bad. And you want to get ahead of it. But like I said, these people just throw switches. And if we aren't there, like we've been talking about, to say, here's the plan, let's talk about this plan. We can modify the plan, but we need to talk about this plan. You just can't throw a switch.
Yeah, and I think there's I think part of that too is understanding the political dynamic. And it's going to be engaging with people that you don't ideologically agree with hardly ever.
Yeah.
Okay. This is California, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you have to understand the politics, and you have to be able to be in a place of authority and alignment in order to earn your seat at that table. But it's not just about, they always talk about, if you're not if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. There's a second part to that, which is, and when the waitress comes around, you better know what you want.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of where we need to be, and we need to be thinking tactical and practical. You can't just sit there and go, I want my water back.
That ain't doing it.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. What do you mean? And they have no clue. And it's up to us to give them that clue and tell them this is how it's a plan, and it has to be done. But I don't. It's a hard road.
It's a hard road, and let me tell you right now, the hardest pill to swallow is the world that we had. The world of my grandfather and my father. Yeah. That is not going to be my world.
No.
So the question is, do I let this happen to me, or do I do something to define what it looks like?
Yeah, future.
Right. And so, no, I have to divorce the fact that the past is past. Right. I am not going back to what that was like. What can I do going forward to keep my growers not just surviving, but thriving into a future?
Sure.
And we need to start thinking about, again, kind of coming back to what was that amazing sophistication and progression and innovation that got us to be where we are, and how do we use that again to define where we want to go?
I was talking to a politician up in Tulare. She's taking Nunez's place. She's probably going to win. And she told me she was talking to Sarah Palin, and they were talking about, I don't know if she was serious or not. She was talking about making a pipeline.
Oh, from Alaska to California?
Alaska, right? Or all these people that have all this water that just, and pumping it just like they do fuel. And I was going, Ooh, man, that's liquid gold.
Canada or, the Great Lakes. The other one is the Mississippi floods, how often, and we all end up paying for it, right? And you've got the sediment issues in New Orleans as a result, the amount of coastline they've lost because they haven't dredged the Mississippi and the constant flooding. And
that's what I was telling her. I said, I always thought about that, but I always thought it would come from the east.
Yeah. So, that is not so far-fetched because the state of Michigan, I believe, still has a state law on the books that says no water from Lake Michigan can go to California or west.
Yeah.
Because they were so terrified of us doing that. I don't know. Maybe we do. I had a friend who threw out an idea of what if we, federalize the entire water system and treated it like a highway.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
I think I love listening to those ideas. I'll tell you, the water world has a tough time with it because there are so many layers. So unique to water.
Oh, yeah.
Unique to water. The layers of history and law and property right and
lawsuits.
That's
what it is.
We're not even talking about the politics of it.
No.
It's just like someone came up with the idea of moving water from eventually it was, I think when I finally looked at it, I was like, so California, so Congressional District 1, you want to move water from Congressional District 1 privately and sell it south. And they were like, yeah. And they showed me all this business plan and all this stuff. And I looked at it and I went, that's Congressman Jared Huffman's district.
Yeah. How are you going to get through that?
The head attorney for the Natural Resource Defense Council.
Yeah.
He's there. No, that's never going to happen.
Yeah. You can't go around it.
Yeah.
Make a big UE, But I think you pretty well solved the world's problems.
I don't know about that,
there.
But I definitely like weighing into the fray and putting up. I had a boss who told me if you're working for the good guys, it's always good work. And I have had the privilege many times in my career and early in my life to realize that when I was in service of my community, I was in service to my country, and that has meant a lot to me. And I have always found myself working for really good people.
Yeah, I stumbled on you, and it was I never really, I knew everything, but I didn't realize the depth that you yourself and your organization goes for the community. I mean, you aren't, you're an almond, but you're also involved with everybody else, all the other farms and everything. It's just not almonds that I'm helping these people because they help me and, they drive my business and everything, but it's everybody you're helping. It's just not almonds. So that's an excellent thing. Is there anything else you want to say after we solve the problem?
We solve the world's problems. Yeah. Well, if people want to learn more about the organization, go to almondalliance.org.
Yeah.
I really encourage you to learn about it. It's a very unique and incredible organization of good people. And don't ever hesitate to reach out to us too. We help with everything from FSA applications and NRCS applications all the way up to macro policy stuff. So
I appreciate you coming and talking to me. And I do marketing and stuff, so I'll be marketing to everybody on this, and it'll build momentum and everything. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I mean, you are a really knowledgeable person. And California's lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to be from here. So.
Okay, Aubrey, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.